Combat.
Wait, Paulie. And go.
Combat and coffee. We're live. We're live from Cafe Sportivo. Boom, Florida edition. How we doing? How we doing?
What's up, Paulie? What's up?
We got the espresso. We got the combat and we got the sunshine. How we doing today? How we doing, fellas?
Hey, what are you doing this weekend? You're coming to Vegas?
I'm going to Vegas this week. Yeah, I'm gonna go on a show with the Schmo. He does a show now, I think, from the Raiders games. I haven't got the whole details yet, but I'm doing a show with the Schmo. Well, I'm not doing a show with the Schmo. I'm guesting on his show, but he's gonna be in full effect, and the Schmo is always a good time to hang out with, and so that's what we're gonna do.
So you're doing MMA for the first time?
I mean, we're gonna talk all things: boxing, MMA, football, soccer. All kinds of stuff. I don't know.
Soccer. That was one of our first questions from Twitter. What's your favorite soccer team?
Okay. I don't have a favorite club team anymore. Okay. I grew up when I was a kid. My father got me a whole Juventus kit around circa 1985. So I grew up liking Juventus. Then I won my first world championship in 2007, and Juventus was nowhere to be found. And you know who invited me? AC Milan. They invited me to Milanello, and I stayed there for a week with the whole team. They had just won the Champions League early in that summer. So it was a great experience. So I gave Milan a little bit of love after that. Then after the attempt at the Super League coup, when they tried to create a Super League, I hated all those teams that were trying to break away from their respective leagues and create that Super League. So now you know what I do? I just watch good football. That's it. I like to watch football. I like to watch good teams. I like to watch good players. But I more so just angle towards Serie A teams in Europe. Within the Serie A, I just watch. That's my league. My league is Serie A. Within Serie A, I just watch the games. But in European competitions, I always try to cheer for Serie A teams because I want the league to do well. And internationally, of course, I root for Italy.
Speaking of which, how's Italy doing?
I hope that explains it, because I've been asked. I've been asked this thing several times, and I don't know how people look at it. But that's the long and the short of it.
The long and short of it. Pause. Cool.
As we drink this short espresso.
Benavidez, Andrade.
Benavidez, Andrade. Come on, Andrade. Boo Andrade. Come on, Jimmy.
He never fights. He never fights.
They're gonna kill you for that one.
But he never fights, so I don't even know. I don't even see his. I don't even see his name that much.
He fights enough that you should know the name, Jimmy.
Okay.
Go easy on my guy, Jimmy, guys, please.
It's been a sec. We haven't had any real boxing since Crawford Spence. Was Canelo Charlo even real boxing?
It's Canelo. What do you mean real boxing? Well, everything's real boxing. It's all boxing. It's all boxing.
It's all boxing. Sorry, I'm loading up these questions right now, Paulie. In the chat, if you have any questions, throw some. Oh, they're sending love from Australia,
as we used to say in Benson, throw some.
What's your Italian slang word of the day? Do you have
Italian slang word of the day? Italian slang word of the day. You know what we're gonna say? Sicilian slang word of the day. Because Italian, I mean, we're gonna do one Italian and one Sicilian. Because with Sicilian, we're like a little bit rough around the edges, and then Italian is more like refined. Okay. So for Sicilian, we're gonna say cocuzza. Cocuzza is squash. It's what every good Sicilian plants in their garden. It's like a big squash. It's a vegetable, and we call it cocuzza. So when you plant the cocuzzas, I don't know. You can make it in different ways. You can cook cocuzzas in different ways. It's basically a giant squash. You cut it up, and you can make you put it in pasta. You can make it, and you can do it in a lot of stuff. So
would you call somebody it? Like, would you call?
Yeah, you can call somebody like a cocuzza head. The facci cocuzza, testi cocuzza. I mean, that means like an idiot. But overall, it just means it's the squash. It's the vegetable squash, and a lot of Sicilians, a lot of Italian immigrants, for example, will plant the cocuzzas. Then Italian word of the day. Let's think of a nice refined Italian word. Let's see. We can say meraviglioso. Meraviglioso means like marvelous, nice, beautiful. It's good. Meraviglioso. All right, we're gonna say that. Like this podcast today, because it's live. It's meravigliosa.
Well, am I being gagoosh?
Gugutsa, no, you're not a fighter,
You're
Gugutsa.
good.
Don't worry about it. You're good. You're good, Jimmy. In my eyes, you are. I don't know about it in everybody else's eyes, but in my eyes, you're good.
Cool. So back to that. Your first impressions with Benavidez versus Andrade.
Impressions of Benavidez versus Andrade. I say this. I think it's a very, very good fight. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I also don't think Andrade is as boring as people try to make it out to be. I just think that's been an excuse that people have been using against him. I think he starts fast. I think he's a physical fighter. I do think he starts to fade a little bit at a certain point in the fight, and I think that's going to cost him. Especially Benavidez, that he likes to start slow. I think it's going to make for an interesting fight because I think Andrade could jump out early and really trouble Benavidez, and then Benavidez may stop him late. I think Benavidez stops him around 9 or 10. But I think it's going to be a good fight to watch. I think it's one of those fights where I think Benavidez falls behind early because Andrade is not just a guy who likes to start fast. He's also very physical early, and he takes you by surprise, and he shocks you kind of by surprise. Early on in fights, he's got a lot of early knockdowns, and then he just kind of sits back and cruises to the distance. I don't think he'll be able to do that in this fight. I think Benavidez just sort of roars back. And I think that's where he ends up getting the stoppage late. I also think it hurts Andrade to be 35 years old and not get a fight of this magnitude until now. But I do think the fight is worth the entertainment value. I really like the fight.
What does this mean for Benavidez moving forward?
It just means that he continues to be the boogeyman in the super middleweight division. First of all, it's the boogie. He's fighting what was the boogeyman, right? I mean, Andrade is a guy everybody avoided. So I think the fact that he's fighting him, if he can take him out, it really would be a huge statement, especially coming off the Caleb Plant win, which is also a very big win because Caleb Plant is also of a high level. So I think if you come in, build momentum with winning over Plant and then Benavidez Plant and then Andrade back to back, you're really going to put the onus on Canelo to have to fight you. I don't know if Canelo will, but ultimately you're still going to put the onus on him. You're putting a lot of pressure and stress on him at that point. I think this would be a big win, especially if it's a win in which I think he won't look perfect in. I think Andrade will trouble him in spots, and especially early on. So I think that's why it'll be worth the money. It'll be worth the price of admission. I think it's going to be a good fight. I really like the fight.
Speaking of that, of Canelo, Tal has far 8052 is asking, how does Canelo fare against the all-time middle and super middleweights? Love the content. Thanks.
I don't know. I mean, listen, Canelo's a good fighter. It's funny because I think Canelo at his best was probably in that mix. Hold on, we got the truck over here. We got the truck. Hold on. Big trucks. Big truckers here. All right, you know what? I think that Canelo in the time frame, like when he fought Plant, Saunders, those guys, I think he was probably at his best around that time, and I think if you put that Canelo in against all the all-time greats, it's a pretty good fight, but it's hard for me to see him beating all of them. Like, for example, Roy Jones at super middleweight is a very tough fight for Canelo at any point, even the best of Canelo. You think about like maybe Canelo against like a Nigel Benn, who was a high contact fighter. That would have been a sick fight. You know what I'm saying? Like Canelo at his best against Nigel Benn at his best. That would have been a sick fight. I think listen, Canelo's in the conversation for those all time best super middleweights. I think you could create a lot of fantasy fun fights.
Speaking of fantasy fun fights, people always ask you this. We've answered before, but Mayweather versus Sugar Ray Leonard.
I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like it's blasphemy when people say that. People always say that nobody would beat Leonard. Like Mayweather would never beat Leonard. I think it'll be a very good fight, man. I think it's interesting. I saw Leonard's take on this fight recently, and he mentioned something that I thought was very interesting, where he'd be trying to hit Mayweather up on like the top of his noggin. Like on the around the temple area, and Leonard actually did have a good right hand that he would put it there a lot of times when he would hurt you. Even his hook, actually, he would throw it a little bit of Golovkin-esque in that way, although Leonard did it first. So I guess Golovkin was more Leonard-esque when he was doing that. But I think, Mayweather at times was susceptible to taking that shot. Listen, man, we're never going to get that fight. Why do we got to frustrate ourselves in talking about it? You know what I'm saying? We're never going to get that fight. It would be something, because I think Mayweather is actually a bit smarter of a fighter than Leonard. But I think Leonard also has a high IQ. It's such a high IQ fight, and as well as a violent fight and everything. I don't know, man. It could also be the kind of fight where a different guy wins it depending on when they fight. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe today one guy wins it, tomorrow the other guy would win. Whoever wakes up better that day. unfortunately, it's one we're never going to get. So what are we going to argue about? What are we going to argue about? We're going to argue about it constantly.
That was from Mike from Bensonhurst. So,
Mike from Bensonhurst. Bensonhurst.
It's your people asking the questions.
25th Hour. Bensonhurst.
But who wins and why?
So, you ever seen the movie 25th Hour? Oh, no.
No, you keep telling me. Oh, 25th Hour?
Bro, you gotta watch 25th Hour so you get some of these references.
Okay. I just saw Primal Fear.
Italians with their Jason Giambi Louisville Sluggers. Bensonhurst.
I know Jason Giambi.
Yeah, well, you can understand what I'm talking about when you watch 25th Hour.
I'll watch 25th Hour. I promise, because I'm recommending people a place in Brooklyn
that scene might be like one of the all-time greatest 3 minutes in movie history. That particular scene, because he goes through all the stereotypes of all New Yorkers, and he kind of hits them pretty much on the head. It's very, very good. And you know me, I'm not the politically correct guy.
Then I'm gonna watch 25th Hour, and then for episode 16, I'll come and we'll do a. I'll come on and we'll talk 20.
Okay, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. You got to watch 25th Hour, and then we'll have a discussion. That's it. That's what
open discussion, live discussion,
open discussion. Yeah,
on 25th Hour. I don't think anybody's doing that. I think we should bring that to YouTube.
And you'll tell me what you think of Natural.
Natural. Well, have you seen Primal Fear?
Of course, bro. Are you kidding me? I saw Primal. Yeah. But I'll tell you how old I am. I saw Primal Fear when it was in the movie theaters. How about that one?
How big of a surprise did it get you?
Before you were born, I saw Primal Fear.
I didn't have it ruined for me. I didn't have it ruined for me, so I just saw it like.
You didn't have it ruined for me? That's good. I didn't know it either because I saw it in the movie theaters. So when I saw it, nobody had seen it. I'll tell you the story. When I saw Primal Fear, I was actually going to the theaters with my friends to watch Fear with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon, and that movie was sold out in the theater. So I was like, all right. We were like, all right, what are we gonna watch? And we saw, okay, Primal Fear. You know what? We were gonna watch Fear. This movie, Primal Fear, might be good. Let's just jump in here and watch this one. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. It was a great movie. But you know what? Fear, I ended up watching it with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. That was actually a good movie too.
Fear? I've never heard of it.
Really?
Well,
you never saw Fear with Mark Wahlberg?
I know Cape Fear.
No, well, Cape Fear I've seen too, of course, but that one I had already seen. But Mark Wahlberg with Reese Witherspoon in Fear, that's one of those movies where cell phones would have solved the problem right away. But in 1996, there were no cell phones, so therefore you have a major plot.
I feel like that was most movies like up until like 2001.
Yeah, well, like Home Alone, if you would have had cell phones, of course. But nonetheless, just put yourself back in 1996 and watch Fear. It's a great movie.
Well, I was born in 98, so I missed the.
So I'm saying that's why you weren't born when I went to that movie theater that day.
Yeah, when we were texting, you were like, you were talking about the golden age of boxing, like I was there. Like I had.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes I forget that you're a youngin.
Yeah. No, I didn't get to see the Tyson comeback or the Tyson fight.
More like I forget that I'm that old.
If you can go back in time, this is a good segue from Buster Cherry 9/11. Cool name. If
I can go back where?
If you can go back in time and choose a different sport career path, would you do it and why?
Go back? Yeah, of course. I always wanted to be a soccer player, for a footballer, as they say in Europe. My favorite sport. Growing up, my mom never let me play sports. My father played in the 3rd and 4th divisions in Italy, and they had a bad divorce. And my mom took it out on all athletes. It's a disagreement I'll always have with my mom, unfortunately. But you know what? Gotta love your mom. They make some mistakes. Sometimes they do things that you don't agree with. Whatever. I mean, at this point, all's well that ends well. I wound up becoming a boxer. In the end, they won 2 world titles. So I guess all's well that ends well. But I watched the 1990 FIFA World Cup. I watched Salvatore Schillaci, Toto Schillaci do what he did. Anybody who watches who's a footballer or a soccer fan will understand what I'm talking about if you're old enough. And Italy hosted the 1990 World Cup, and Schillaci was a monster in that World Cup. And Schillaci was a Sicilian, and I'm a Sicilian. And that became my dream to basically do that, Just my best imagination. That would have been my ideal life. But I wound up being a boxer. Not too bad.
Do you think you would have wound up being in front of people regardless? Personality wise, like, I mean, you're still commentating.
I don't know, man. Honestly, if I didn't find boxing, by the time I ended up in boxing, things were so bad that I had to find something because it was gonna wind up being really bad. Like I don't think it would have been that good of an ending. Like I don't want to predict, man. I don't want to say, oh, I definitely would have wound up dead or in jail, because I don't feel like I was that bad of a person, but a misguided person winds up doing bad things, So I feel like I don't know where I would have been. I don't know. I feel like being a performer though is something that I enjoyed doing. I like the pressure of it, and I enjoyed yeah, I enjoyed the adulation on fight night, or on the night of performance, which is, again, going back to the '90s World Cup when Scalacci was scoring those goals in Italy. It was just I was always attracted to that kind of thing. But I assume a lot of people would be, right? I mean, I assume that's like a dream to live that kind of life, right? I don't know. For me, it was always something that I was a little bit of a dreamer, but dreamers don't always actually wind up in the situations that they wind up in. I don't know. It's hard to bring. Listen, all I can say is it wound up the way it wound up. That's it. It wound up the way it wound up. And you know what? It's not too bad.
Not too bad. I mean, you're going to Vegas tomorrow for 24 hours. And
Vegas tomorrow. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't think. I don't know that I've paid. I don't know that I've ever paid, or if anything, I've paid that much. I've ever paid that often for Vegas trips. I don't know. The amount of times I've been to Vegas is insurmountable to count, right? But the amount of times that I had to pay for those trips, maybe you can count it on one hand. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean that's what comes with being a prize fighter.
Yeah.
How come Malignaggi, Victor Ortiz never got made?
Well, same reason some other fights didn't get made. I mean, timing, everything. I mean, think about it. Why didn't Malignaggi and Mayweather get made? Like at that time, I was among the higher level welterweights that in the sport. Speaking of Victor, I mean, Victor won a world title and held it only for 6 months, and then fought Mayweather, lost it, and never won another world title. I was a 2-time world champion for that. Between those 2 times, being a champ, I was a champion for years of my career, but I never got the Mayweather fight. I mean, I don't know. It's just some things happen, some things don't. So me and Victor, I was always cool with Victor, but yeah, I mean, if they would have put the fight in front of us, I mean, I'm sure we would have fought. It never came along.
Who's your favorite fighter out of the UK, past and present, and why? 18 Riaz on Poly TV Instagram. Thanks for
Prince Nassim Hamed. That's not even a question. Prince Nassim Hamed is my favorite fighter from the UK. He's one of my favorite fighters ever. I mean, definitely my favorite fighter from the UK ever, for sure. And listen, with the UK, you have a bevy of fighters you could choose. There's so many fan favorites. There's so many guys that you can mention, and ask. That's a loaded question, but personally, for me, yes, Prince Nassim Hamed, my favorite UK fighter of all time.
Paulie and Mikey Garcia in an exhibition fight. Why not? That's what they're saying in the chat.
Take out the why and just say not. I'm not doing exhibitions. I've been offered them already. I've even been offered good money for them. I don't want to do them anymore. I don't want to train, dude. You know what I mean? I did the celebrity boxing with Corey B a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. That was like a fun, like kind of hobbyish type of thing. I could only get myself to train for a week, dude. I could not stay in the gym. I could not get myself to train for that. So I don't want to. I can't get motivated to train every single day like a real fight anymore, man. I can't do it. You can't pay me enough. Literally, you can't pay me enough, because I've been offered some decent ones, and I just turned them down.
You'd rather eat pizza?
Huh? I enjoy eating pizza. I like hanging around the coffee shop, bro. Cafe Sportivo. I like hanging around the coffee shop and having my espressos and chilling.
Yeah. This might relate to Italian 90 was one of the best World Cups ever.
See, people know. Whoever watched it knows. If you're old enough to have watched it, you know. And you know what? In that World Cup, even my English fans will have a special affinity for Italian 90, because England had a very good team that year as well. So it's something I think Italians and English people bond over, is the Italian 90 World Cup, because both teams were very, very good, and we're a bit unlucky not to have won that World Cup, and we're a bit unlucky not to have met in the final. Actually, it's one of those. We share in the disappointment and also the love of Italian 90.
Is that what's your favorite memory in Italian soccer? Was it 2006?
Yeah, the World Cup, winning the World Cup, watching Italy win the World Cup, bro. That was like winning a world championship, bro. Honestly, that rivals my happiness to when I won the world championship. I mean, winning the World Cup for Italy was sick. I mean, that was. So many disappointments because honestly, most of the time you're never going to watch your country win the World Cup, and then I mean, God, it was and having a growing up being from a country that actually was good enough to win the World Cup, but then having seen them come up just short a couple of times, finally it came through in 2006.
And you're
went out with a bang because
in your prime too.
Yeah, I just lost the Cotto fight. It helped me forget that defeat actually because it was a month later that Italy won the World Cup. But it was honestly, now looking back, it was almost like going out with a bang because Italy has not done much since. Although we did win the European Cup a couple of years ago randomly.
You said yourself though that was kind of a fluke, right?
The European Cup, 2 years ago, that was kind of fluky. We just put together a good team and we randomly just wound up winning it in the middle of a time where we were actually horrible, and we still are horrible.
At
least by the standards that I grew up watching.
Are they going to qualify for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the FIFA is turning into everybody gets a participation trophy kind of thing. They're allowing more teams to enter these tournaments. So you got to really be horrible not to qualify. I mean, the next World Cup 2026 is going to be 48 teams. That's a joke. So, I mean, think about how bad you got to suck to not qualify for 2026 World Cup. I mean, you got to, I grew up where the World Cup was 24 teams and then it was 32 teams. And I thought 32 teams was already too much. So, I mean, just because you qualify for the World Cup doesn't mean anything, It's more than that.
This is a good one. I didn't even know this existed. Dynamite 2K on the chat is saying, how about Ireland beating Italy in the Meadowlands in 94? Do you remember that?
That was a shock. That was a shock start to the 94 World Cup. That was, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited, coming off Italia 90, where Italy had such a good team. I'm thinking like, we're going to take that momentum in. But Saki, our coach, was a little bit of a weird guy. You know what I mean? Like he changed up a lot of things, tinkered a lot with the lineup. And we were still good looking. Saki was a weirdo, but he knew how to win. But he was a weirdo, man. I mean, I think he killed a lot of the playmaking ability Italy had in 1994. But we still had a great superstar in Roberto Baggio, who basically carried us to the final. But we lost the opening game. We lost the opening game, and luckily for us, the Irish went and lost their next game to Mexico. And then Italy beat Norway in the next game. So that put us right back into contention for the group. We still barely got out of the group. But then once we got out of the group, we just marched all the way to the final. It was a classic World Cup. And just to put it, we beat Ireland in Italia 90. All right, don't. Yeah, you beat us in the group stage and in USA 94, but we still got out of the group and we got to the final. But in Italia 90, we eliminated you guys. All right, don't forget it. Scalacci.
Let's take it back like 2 weeks. When Fury got his ass whooped apparently by Ngannou. Let's be real, Paulie. You're one of the realists 90% of the time. What does that mean?
I think that's might be a guy that thought Ngannou won the fight. Listen, I just can't give Ngannou enough rounds, man. I thought Ngannou overperformed, and I honestly, I think that everybody was surprised at how well Ngannou was boxing. I think even if Fury was ready for the fight, Ngannou would have still got credit for the way he was going to fight the fight. You know what I mean? Like, I think Fury totally underestimated him. I mean, Fury was horrible. But I still think Fury had enough experience to know how to win rounds when they're dead. When you have a lot of experience, you know how to win those quiet rounds and sneak them in your pocket, Ngannou fought very well, but he didn't know how to win the quiet rounds because he doesn't have enough experience yet. That's something you acquire with experience where, you realize some of the rounds can stay quiet and you can sneak them away in your pocket, And that's why I think Fury ended up winning the fight, because mathematically you got to win more rounds. But Ngannou won the more eye-catching rounds, the bigger rounds. It's just, for me, there weren't enough of those. But I think Ngannou, nonetheless, even if Fury comes in ready, I think Ngannou, interestingly enough, because the main thing was the balance in his feet. I mean, I've never seen an MMA guy comes across the boxing and finally get the feet right. I mean, it was really beautiful to see that he got his feet right. I mean, you never see these freaking MMA guys, and they take away their own natural athletic ability by not converting their feet. Even somebody like Anderson Silva, who was so athletic, couldn't convert his feet into boxing footwork and look like doggy doodle. You know what I mean? When he fought Jake Paul. So, to see Ngannou convert his feet correctly was really it was beautiful to see, because then he threw his shots were short, his shots were straight. He had a little bit of a simple game plan in terms of knowing how to catch and shoot with the hook, which I thought was brilliant. That's what he got the knockdown. Listen, give Ngannou credit, but I just don't think he did enough to win in more rounds and win enough rounds. But it was a pleasant performance to see him overachieve. I think Fury deserves all the criticism he's getting, but I still don't think he lost. But also, I'm happy because Ngannou will at least walk into one more big payday because of this, because people will want to watch him box again.
Pay-per-view wise, though, how does that make sense? I was hearing like 69,000 for the numbers.
I don't know, but I don't even know what to do with these numbers anymore. Pay-per-view. I stay out of that, bro. I stay out of that. I really don't.
No, I agree, but
I mean, listen. Here's the thing about the United States of America. In the fall, we have college football, and that is a big, big part of the United States culture. And on Saturday afternoons, and the fight is on Saturday afternoon in the fall in the United States. You know, because in Saudi Arabia, with the time difference, the fight was on in the fall. I mean, in the afternoon in the fall. So, maybe it has to do with going head to head against college football, which, if you're an American, you kind of know how big of a deal that is. And you usually don't want to go head to head with college football. The only thing I can think of, if those numbers are true, which I don't even know, because at this point, I don't really know what to believe about pay-per-view numbers. It's possible that it was because of you're going head to head against college football.
And I think the World Series was on at the time as well.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, which did record low numbers as well. I don't know. We see a lot of questions, with Showtime getting out of boxing. Like, where is it headed? And have you been hearing anything? I've been hearing Netflix.
I've heard they're going to go to a streaming platform. Maybe Amazon, I've heard, is one of the options. But I heard that the bigger contract fighters, they're still finding a home for them. Who knows? They might have it. They just haven't announced yet. But I heard that PBC will go to Amazon Prime.
I love that.
And have sort of a mid-range cards, sort of like the old Fox Sports 1 cards that they were doing, which I guess would make them compete against ProBox TV. Which, if you're competing against ProBox TV, you're gonna get your ass kicked, because we've got literally the best competitive fights on our Wednesday night fight series every 2 Wednesdays. I think ProBox TV for me is the best, non-championship level fight cards since ESPN Friday Night Fights. And I think, honestly, we even rival those. And everybody remembers how good Friday Night Fights used to be. I think our Wednesday Night Fight series on ProBox TV is legitimately the best non-championship boxing shows I've. And I may sound biased because I work there, but honestly, dude, if you just watch one of our shows, I think you'll agree, man. Or if you go back and watch one of our other shows.
You see in the comments. How much people love it.
Yeah, so I just think it's everybody out there, spread the word, because if you guys as boxing fans, I think everybody should know about these kind of series, where I think it's fun and you can watch these kind of fights. I mean, I honestly, dude, I have a blast calling them. I don't always have fun calling fights, man. You know what I mean? But some of the fights, end up dud, just like fans. I mean, some of them end up duds and the fans get unhappy and disgruntled. Honestly, the Wednesday Night Fight series, me, Chris Algieri, Mike Goldberg, I got a great team I work with. And, bro, they're fun as hell, bro. I mean, they're just constantly good fights. And the atmosphere is good. It's a small, comfortable arena that always fills up. It has like a Blue Horizon-ish type of feel. If anybody remember, old school boxing fans remember the Blue Horizon, where it's everything cozy and right on top of you, and it's loud even though it's not big. I mean, dude, for me,
it's like your call.
It's a great series. It's a great series. And we always have good competitive fights.
It's like
our next
your
show.
call.
Show is actually next Wednesday, the 15th. Then we're on the 29th, and then our final show of the year is December 13th. And we take a break until for the holiday season until the new year. But yeah, November 15th, November 29th, and December 13th. If you guys haven't seen it, check us out on ProBox TV, ProBoxTV.com. Download the app; it's free, I think. I don't know, bro. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here being a salesman. The fights are worth it. That's all I'll tell you.
We have a couple more questions. I have a question for you. But I don't think I've ever actually. What's your favorite fight you've ever called, and why?
Favorite fight I ever called? I've been asked this question before. It's the Wembley Stadium fight between Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko. Is the favorite fight
in
I
America?
Ever called.
All right, I think you said that in America.
In America, honestly, bro, it's never really crossed my mind as saying like, "Wow, this one stands out." Honestly, I don't know,
because those crowds are just different.
I'd have to go back into my Rolodex of my brain, and there has not really been one that I've called in America that is like, wow, my favorite fight ever. There's classic good fights, I'm sure, that I've called. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering. There's never been one that I say, wow, this one's going to be one for the books. I don't know. And I've called some fun ones. Listen, I worked at Showtime for 8 years. There had to have been some good ones that I called in those 8 years.
Maidana. Didn't you do Broner Maidana?
I did Broner Maidana, but yeah, I mean, that was anticipated because of the hype, but it wasn't like, was that a great fight? It was fun. I mean, it was cool to call. That's what I'm saying. I don't have.
I'm just saying personally for you because you fought Broner and then he gets knocked out by
Yeah,
Maggot.
but that wasn't. I didn't get any satisfaction out of that because that ruined my rematch. You know what I'm saying? Like I was hoping for a rematch of Broner, and that ended up imploding everything because now the title wouldn't have been on the line. You know, I needed Broner to keep that title. Although if Broner would have kept that title, he would have got the Mayweather fight anyway. So I guess in the end, I wasn't going to get a rematch regardless. But I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like that was a good fight because it was very hyped and it was there was a lot going on. I don't know, man. I favorite
you
fight I've
called the
called,
two biggest pay-per-views of all time, but they weren't great fights.
Yeah, they weren't good fights. So that's what I'm saying. Like there hasn't been a fight in America, and that's not saying that I've called only bad fights in America. I've called some good fights in America, but there hasn't been one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that was like, wow. You know what was another fun one that I remember calling was Porter against Thurman. Porter Thurman was a good fight. That was a good. Again, I've called some good fights. I just none of them in America. Just none. I just can't think of one that was like, wow. I remember leaving Joshua Klitschko and just being like the adrenaline was like I just fought. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't sleep. Like it was like I was just filled with adrenaline about what I had just watched. The atmosphere, the fight, everything. I never really had that in America like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's good fights I've called. Again, Thurman and Porter's one of them. There's probably other ones in there, but I can't. There's not one that ever made me feel like that. I think that has have it stick out in my memory. A fight that I've called, it has to stick out the way Joshua Klitschko stuck out of my memory, and I can't think of another one off the top of my head that had that effect on my emotions and my adrenaline.
What fight now do you think could do that?
What fight now? What?
What fight? If you were a matchmaker in heaven, or not in heaven, and if you're the perfect matchmaker who can make any fight, what do you think you can make that could build
fight
up?
You want to make right now?
Yeah, like if that could match that energy, or do you think it's unmatchable?
I don't know. I don't think there is one anymore. I mean, I'm not sure. There's good fights you can make, but then you know what it is? You have to create the fight, and then you need it to actually build up and work out. Like Vladimir Klitschko and Joshua was built up so much, and then the fight actually panned out that way. You know what I'm saying? So that's very rare. It's a very rare combination. Sometimes you get a good fight, but it wasn't built up the way it should have been, but it winds up being a good fight, right? And sometimes you get a build-up that's huge, but then the fight's not that good of a fight. The combination of a huge build-up and then the fight is great. I mean, that was what Joshua versus Klitschko was. You know, I assume that's how Leonard and Hearns 1 was, for example, where a monster buildup and then the fight. Even, you know what? Tyson versus Holyfield. I didn't call it, but I watched it, right? I mean, those kind of fights won. Tyson versus Holyfield 1, not 2. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I think it's very rare when you get both the hype and then the actual fight works out that way, I don't know that you have that right now. I think you have fights that will be hyped up a lot, like, for example, Fury versus Usyk, but would that really build up into a classic if they fought? I don't really think so. There's fights you want to watch like Gervonta Davis or Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney against any of those two guys as well. It'd be hyped up, but would the fight actually work out in the way where it would be a classic? I don't think so. So I don't know that there's any fight on the horizon that you think about it and you say, oh well, even Canelo Benavidez. I mean, everybody wants to watch it, but is the fight going to be a classic if they fight? I don't know, man. I don't think so. I don't think so.
You can't call a classic before it's a classic.
Well, you can hype it up like it's going to be a classic, but then that kind of hype, unfortunately, you then need it to live up to it, and that's very rare. When you get both together, where it's built up as a classic, and then it generates that kind of fight, you have. I mean, off the top of my head, I assume Ali Frazier 1 was that kind of fight, right? And it was built up as a classic. Leonard Hearns 1, and that also was a classic. But these were all before my time, Tyson versus Holyfield 1, I watched it. I can remember that build-up, and you know what? That's a classic. I didn't work it. It was before I even started boxing, but you know what? I can imagine that has the effect, And for me, Joshua versus Klitschko. In the United States, I can't think of anything that I've worked that had that effect.
Not even Lobov Malnaji?
Not even who?
Lobov Malnaji? Malnaji Lobov?
That's
what they're saying in the comments.
That was kind of a dud too, because what ended up happening was I break my hand, and really, was the fight that exciting? Once I broke my hand, was the fight that exciting? I honestly think if I keep both hands, I'm going to stop him. You know what I mean? Like, because I was just when I started getting the timing on the right hand, and I found the distance on the right hand, which was halfway through round 2. I started finding the range on it because I took about a round and a half to sort of jab him and control the range and just pick my spot. But once I finally started getting the range, the first right hand I threw, I broke it. So then I got to not find the range. I got to just jab and use check hooks. So then, and he didn't do anything either, you know what I mean? Because he couldn't get inside regardless. So he ended up becoming a dud, you know what I mean? It really ended up becoming a dud too, if you think about it. But even if I have both hands, I don't think it would have been a classic. I think I would have just assaulted him and stopped him within another couple of round or two after that. Because bare knuckle, you know, all the blood and stuff like that, I would have started getting two-handed combinations in there because now I now found the range and I would have stopped him. So I don't think it would have been a classic whether I didn't break my hand or, as it turned out, when I broke my hand and I just boxed him. I don't think either way it was a classic. But I still think I won the fight. I mean, every boxing website that covered it thought I won the fight. I mean, that's part of the reason MMA fans get really no credit for any intelligence from me. You know, when you break my chops and you say, "Oh, you lost to Lobov," how you like the fact that you think I lost to Lobov, that you can watch that fight and still think Lobov won it. You got to be an idiot in terms of combat sports knowledge and understanding. You got to be an idiot to watch that fight and think I lost it. You got to be an idiot.
We should do a rewatch soon and score top points.
Yeah.
with everybody. All right, let's round out.
Huh?
Easy. Let's round out tomorrow. James Toney is back in the ring against Donovan
Razor Ruddock. You know, Ruddock was fun back in the day, bro. You know what I mean? People remember Toney. I don't know if anybody's a dinosaur like me that can remember Ruddock. Ruddock was fun for a while, bro. Ruddock pre-Tyson was a machine, dude. Honestly, I think he left a piece of himself in the Tyson fights because he still got some big fights after that, but it wasn't the same Ruddock. You know what I'm saying? He still, you know, he lost to Morrison and he lost to Lennox Lewis, but Ruddock that fought Tyson and the Ruddock that was fighting guys before he fought Tyson, dude, that Ruddock was a terror, bro.
So you got a prediction?
Like, hold on. The guy with the Harley, I couldn't hear anything. What happened?
Do you have a prediction for Toney
I don't know. I mean,
Lights Out's comeback. It was supposed to be.
I mean, Ruddock is probably a little older, I assume. I don't know.
59.
Yeah, I think Toney probably does a little better. How can you predict Ruddock? I haven't seen the guy fight in 30 years. How am I going to predict him? You know?
Well, I got Lights Out.
Lights Out.
Next week we got Shakur coming back, and then I think we round out with
that's a decent little fight, bro. That guy can fight. The guy he's fighting, listen, Shakur is top level. But this guy he's fighting, underrated because he's not that famous. But, bro, that kid can fight. If you watch that kid he's fighting can fight a little bit. Actually, a lot of it. That kid can fight.
De Los Santos at the T-Mobile Arena in Nevada.
He's dangerous, bro. Okay. He's dangerous.
Well, that's actually a good card. Yeah, we should cover that. And then actually this isn't a bad month. We got Zoo versus Biggs, and then
boxing does a good job of closing the year out with a bang usually, and that's what we're getting.
And then we got Benavidez versus Andrade to close out November, and then Prograis and Haney.
The 9th. And the week before that, on December 2nd, I am working BYB in Denver.
BYB in Denver.
Colorado has opened things up to bare knuckle.
All right, so we'll be back next week to preview that Shakur fight, and you will maybe have a bold prediction, or
we'll give a prediction. We'll do some coverage. We'll see, but don't miss me on ProBox TV.
You're saying
15th.
Not to overwatch the. You're saying not to look past this guy. You're saying not to look past this guy.
Look past De Los Santos. No, I mean Shakur doesn't look past anybody. Shakur's always consistent, but I mean De Los Santos is a good fighter. De Los Santos can fight. It's just Shakur is like another level, but De Los Santos can fight. But also don't miss me on November 15th and November 29th, ProBox TV with our next two ProBox TV events. Go to ProBoxTV.com, download the app, check us out on the fights, or you can go to ProBox TV channel on YouTube if you really don't want to go to ProBoxTV.com. But either way, worth it. Wednesday Night Fight Series on ProBox TV.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Paulie.
Plus, you get to see Paulie Malignaggi commentate. You know, you guys miss me.
What's better? Come on a Wednesday. There's no Sopranos, but there's Paulie still.